Midnight, open sea. The film opens with a long, sweeping shot of the dark ocean under a crescent moon. The water is turbulent, reflecting faint moonlight as waves crash in rhythm. A distant humming sound grows louder. A sleek speedboat emerges, cutting through the waves. Jake Carter, early 30s, a sharp, rugged-looking man with piercing eyes, steers the boat with a steady grip. Every muscle in his body is tense, and his jaw is set as he glances over his shoulder. Jake's phone buzzes in his pocket. He hesitates for a second, knowing he's on borrowed time, but then pulls it out. A message flashes on the screen. 30 minutes to the meeting point. Come alone. Jake's face hardens. This isn't his first dangerous deal, but he knows tonight is different. He's carrying the syndicate's encrypted files, a treasure trove of data implicating powerful figures worldwide. If he succeeds, he'll finally be free. If he fails, he'll likely be dead by sunrise. Just then, headlights slice through the darkness behind him. He curses under his breath. 2 speedboats are closing in fast. Jake adjusts his grip, gunning the engine as bullets whiz past, tearing through the waves beside him. The high-speed chase the speedboats behind him are no ordinary patrols. They're armed, syndicate-owned vessels. Their job is simple: kill Jake and retrieve the files. A hail of gunfire erupts, and Jake ducks instinctively as he navigates through the water, adrenaline fueling his every move. He maneuvers sharply, sending waves of water up to disrupt the gunman's line of sight. But they're relentless, gaining on him inch by inch. The lead boat draws dangerously close, and Jake catches sight of Mason, the syndicate's ruthless enforcer, standing at the bow. They lock eyes for a brief, intense moment before Mason aims and fires, hitting Jake's shoulder. Jake staggers, clutching his shoulder as blood stains his shirt. Gritting his teeth, he pushes forward, weaving through the water with even more desperation. The bullet wound slows Jake, and his movements grow labored. The engine starts sputtering, making Jake's heart race with panic. His eyes scan the dark horizon, and then he sees it, a large fishing trawler looming in the distance. With a silent prayer, he coasts toward the ship, killing his engine just before reaching the vessel. Quietly, he drifts in the trawler's shadow, hoping his pursuers lose his trail. But Mason's boat isn't far behind. Jake barely manages to hoist himself up onto the trawler, adrenaline dulling the sharp pain in his shoulder. Breathing heavily, he scrambles along the deck and hides in the shadows, pressing a rag to his wound. The silence feels thick, and Jake steadies himself, clutching the stolen data drive tightly. If he can just stay hidden long enough, maybe he'll get his shot at escaping. Close call on the ship. Footsteps echo across the trawler's deck. Jake's heart pounds in his chest as he listens, every sense heightened. He peeks around the corner, catching a glimpse of Mason and his men boarding the ship. They fan out, their footsteps methodical, as they scour the ship. Jake inches along a narrow hallway, but one of Mason's men catches his movement. They lock eyes, and in an instant, a brutal fight erupts. Jake, despite his injury, unleashes every ounce of strength he has, grappling and striking with sheer desperation. He manages to knock the man unconscious, but not before the commotion attracts more of Mason's crew. Jake, breathless and battered, hides in a nearby storage room, pressing his back against the cold metal wall. Mason steps into the room moments later, his voice a quiet, menacing whisper. Jake, you really thought you could run? Jake's mind races, and he realizes he's cornered. His only option is the one he fears the most, diving back into the freezing, open water. With a smirk, he salutes Mason mockingly before plunging overboard, disappearing into the waves below. Final showdown on the water. Jake surfaces, gasping, his wound throbbing with each heartbeat. The water is frigid, chilling him to the bone. But dawn is approaching, casting a dim glow over the horizon. Mason and his men leap into the water, determined to end this game. The final fight unfolds in the open sea, with Jake and Mason facing off amid the rolling waves. It's a desperate, primal struggle for survival. Jake's strength falters, but his resolve holds. Mason lunges, but Jake dodges, using the weight of the waves to his advantage. After a fierce struggle, Jake manages to subdue Mason, leaving him barely conscious as Jake swims back to his boat, victorious but barely standing. Sailing towards sunrise with the first rays of dawn lighting the sky, Jake hauls himself onto his speedboat, dripping wet and visibly weakened. He grips the stolen data drive, relief mingling with exhaustion as he stares out at the horizon. He takes a moment to gather his breath, then sends a final message, mission complete. The intel is safe. He looks back once, knowing he's left behind a life of danger, but also a part of himself on those dark waters. Finally, he turns back to the sunrise, throttling the engine and disappearing into the endless, open sea, free for the first time in his life as the golden light bathes the ocean in warmth.